been a missing link, not only within science, physics, but just our overall advancement and evolution as a human species. Components of the program are well familiar that consciousness is non-local. And what does that mean? Well, it means that our essence is more than our body. Right? We can have out-of-body experiences, and we can perhaps imprint or even affect the reality around us.
Hi, and welcome to Magick Circle. I'm your host, Mark. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about ESP and some of the things that Jordan Jozak has been mentioning recently on his X account. For those that haven't seen it, he dropped a really cool video about 20 minutes long, going into his story and some of his beliefs with ESP and human potential. And I'm going to go over them today. If no one knows about Jordan Jozak, he's part of I think he's still part of it, but he's part of the Skywatcher group along with Jake Barber. And I've been following them on YouTube, and you can see him being interviewed in some of these videos, and you can see him being blindfolded along with Dave Batista at night, summoning UAPs and potentially piloting them. That's what they're actually doing. So he's a pretty credible person to listen to about this topic. So let's get into it.
And that missing link is consciousness. We need to have an honest conversation about ourselves. Psi has been a missing link, not only within science, physics, but just our overall advancement and evolution as a human species. Components of the program are well familiar that consciousness is non-local. And what does that mean? Well, it means that our essence is more than our body. Right? We can have out-of-body experiences, and we can perhaps imprint or even affect the reality around us. So what does that mean? Well, that means that you are very much in control of your own reality. Your thoughts do become things, and the whole age-old addict of The Secret or manifestation is, in my mind, things that are very true, and things that I was trained on to exploit within the program. See, we weren't doing things like getting in a secret spaceship or going to underground bases and meeting with aliens. We were using consciousness technology that engaged with us, and they needed very special kids to do that. Within the program for those 2 years, I worked with autistic non-speakers, and the abuses that I saw committed were disgusting. While I was a kid who had a voice and could use my body, I could kick and scream when the experiments were getting bad. But for those that were non-speaking or non-moving, they had a much more difficult time. And there needs to be a serious investigation into this programmatic nature.
So in his video, he mentions that from the ages of 9 to 14, if I'm correct, he was involved in a GATE program. So basically a program where kids that had an innate ability with ESP and Psi, that were used by people within the government, a covert group, to enhance their abilities for the gain and function for the government. And this started around 2005 when he was around 9. In his school, a psychologist separated him from the class, and he became one of the clients there for the psychologist. There was no explanation given to him or his parents of why he needed to see this psychologist, but he was being scouted and recruited by this GATE program at that time. So it started quite early in his life. And in 2008, he progressed quite a lot within this program, where he became completely separated from the school system, and he entered a covert facility where he was able to develop his psi abilities even more. And he claims to have interacted and worked with a technology called Sylvia. Now, this reminds me a little bit of how, for example, Tim Taylor uh, has been mentioned in books like um, by Diana Walsh Pasulka, where Tim Taylor would sit in a room and would interact with some sort of foreign technology to human beings. Um, so it doesn't seem that far fetched to me that he would be using some technology, but it's quite interesting that they would even have a name for it and personify this technology. It's quite strange there to give it some sort of female name. Um, but in the video, he then goes into some of his beliefs in the ESP. So he believes that um, not only are human beings able to interact with this sort of alien technology, but they have the potential to create their own reality. He does mention the secret and manifesting, and he thinks that those things are real in in for us for ourselves, for human beings to experience. And it's quite interesting. It plays into what really is happening with the UFO phenomenon. I mean, are if he's been trained to summon UFOs, is he really summoning something that is external and separate from himself, or is he has he been trained along the same lines of Dave Batista to, in a sense, create this experience? Because if you look at it in that way, if he's been able to somehow create some sort of technology or some sort of object that he can then pilot, it doesn't seem like it just doesn't fit in, at least from my perspective, it doesn't fit into the idea that these are just some independent alien intelligence that's driving around these UFOs and then suddenly being hurled into Earth and they're seen by us. Somehow, like we're able to either create that experience, or we're attracting this phenomenon or this intelligence into our lives somehow, which is quite a different way to think about it from from like the traditional way of understanding UFOs. And I began to think about how Tom DeLonge's um, novel series, Secret Machines, goes into this quite a lot. I mean, if no one's read it, it's quite an interesting series. Um, and they're good reads. I mean, they're very entertaining. But he does go into a story where I can't remember the main character's name, but the pilot realizes that he's been from a young age involved in these types of programs. He's been either bioengineered from a young age, or his fetus was somehow engineered to have um, these psi abilities to communicate with non-human intelligence, or just to, for example, in the novels, the pilot develops more and more his ESP abilities, and he's able to, in one scene that's quite interesting, there having dinner with some of the rest of the characters, and then he's able to pull the salt shaker to himself. Um, and in some interviews, Tom DeLonge has said that human beings have the potential to be like, I like superheroes, like in Star Wars, where you can use this force for good or for darkness, and how possibly some of the NHI do not want us to develop these psi abilities. They want to keep us enslaved and to keep us dumb, in the sense to believe that all we are is just meat and bones, and we have nothing else that transcends this. We have no other power, no other way to fight back to what we've been placed under, which would be some sort of a prison, whether you want to understand that through a Gnostic sense or not, but we're in some sort of a 3D prison here on Earth. So, yeah, going back to Jordan Jozak, his interview was really interesting. I mean, I was looking at some of his posts on X, and he does explain more about his ideas on God, and which was I found interesting on suffering. He was telling his story how um, I think he found out his fiance was cheating on him. Then he had cancer several times, and how his beliefs on God, they don't seem religious in that sense, but they do seem very firm. Like he has a really strong understanding and experience of God in his life, and that he's learning lessons. That we're here to learn lessons, and how powerful human beings are. Um, so. Yeah, I'm keen to see more interviews with him. I'd love to interview him and to speak more about his life story and what he actually practices and what he believes. He did mention in the X video that he is creating, I think, 3 separate ventures which would focus on, I think, one of them is telepathy. Another is like Night Under the Stars, where it's some sort of experience uh, summoning UFOs, and the other one I can't remember, but they're all crowdfunded. Um, so they seem quite interesting. I'd like to see how that pans out and what he actually develops from that stage. Right now, it's just um, he's got a web page and he's got a pretty cool Spotify playlist if you want to listen to that. And I've been meditating along to those tracks. They're really great. And yeah, it's kind of this video and seeing him um, explain ESP and spirituality has been quite inspiring, and because it does make you sort of think how big the universe really is and about human potential, what we're really capable of doing, and our perceptions of ourselves and our lives um, can really change, and we can affect our reality with our thoughts and intentions and feelings. And by opening our hearts and practicing meditation, we can experience something out of this world, indescribable. It's something that seems to me very natural, very part of this world as well. So yeah, I'm really excited to see more of his story and to hear more of his thoughts on ESP and spirituality. But for now, that's been the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please leave a comment on the videos. It really helps. And I've also got links to my Substack and TikTok. Yeah, please give me a follow and a like, and see you next time.